What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you so much for checking out this edition of our virtual NBA Draft War Room. Today, we're going to be talking about the Portland Trailblazers. Kendall, the Trailblazers, very weird season. You know, this is a team that had a Western Conference championship run the year before. This year, riddled with injuries, a very disappointing season up until the stoppage. They came back from the pandemic quarantine and into the bubble, played much better basketball. Found a way, with the playing situation to sneak into the playoffs. And people maybe were maybe a threat in that first round matchup, though they were beaten fairly handily by the Lakers. So, Blazers, a lot of different interesting pieces on the team. Of course, you have a superstar in Damian Lillard. You have an all-star caliber player in C.J. McCollum, though he hasn't made one yet. But it still feels like they're a ways away from being a real threat in the Western Conference. So this makes this position in the draft at 16 pretty interesting for them.
Yeah, 16 is a lot higher than than you would expect for a team of the Blazers caliber. I don't think they're any worse than those teams in the Western Conference that are drafting in the 20s. Utah, for example, or Oklahoma City. Like, there are teams drafting in the 20s that are, like in the same tier. Maybe Portland's not better than those. That's up for debate, but they're in the same tier as those teams when healthy. But like you said, this is a team that dealt with injuries all season, never really lived up to expectations. Finally, we're starting to get healthy during the NBA restart, and once the playoffs hit, played their best basketball of the season as they were getting healthy, and the playoffs come around and they get ravaged by injuries again. And, didn't really put up a fight against the Lakers due to that. So, it'll be interesting to see how they approach this, because they have guys like, Lillard and McCollum. You can't really do much with them. It's a great backcourt. There's not really much. There aren't many ways you can make them better by getting rid of one of those two guys. And they play excellent basketball, and they are the ones that made them the tough out that they were during the bubble. And then you have a guy, Yusuf Nurkic, that I think really, really kind of stepped onto the scene a little bit during the restart, coming back from injury. He had that nasty leg injury last season, or 2 seasons ago, really, and really bounced back from it, as we saw this year, and played maybe the best basketball of his career during the bubble. So he's somebody that I think they look at as a franchise cornerstone at this point.
Yeah, and you talk about Nurkic. They brought in Whiteside, knowing that they thought they wouldn't have Nurkic for the whole season, most likely because of the injury, and then you get the restart happen and gave him more time to recover. And by the time we got to restarting the season, he was able to play. And like you said, I think he played much better than I thought he would play, coming off of that nasty injury. But that backcourt, I think, is. You're saying nothing to do with them, or maybe you can't really touch them. I don't know, because that's really the core of their team, and those are the two players that really would have any kind of value in any kind of trade market. So if they are going to do anything rash, I think it has to start with those two guards. But let's get into what happened with the Portland Trailblazers this season and what will happen in the offseason. So Portland ended the season again with a 35-39 record. They were able to make the playoffs, beating Memphis in a playing tournament kind of situation, and getting that 8th seed. They were ousted by the Lakers in the first round. They own picks number 16 and 46. Team needs. It's a little bit of a weird team because they have a lot of guys who were playing and guys who weren't playing, and it's kind of hard to figure out kind of what their roster is going to end up being next year, considering all the injuries they had. But I put athleticism as one of the things that stood out to me. I think that, when you look at the team, the athletic profile isn't that great. They have a lot of size, and they have some quickness, but the 6'6", 6'7", wiry, jumpy wing guy, besides Nasir Little, who I think still we don't really know what he is in the NBA. They don't really have a lot of those guys. I think it hurt them playing against the Lakers, who are so big up front and so imposing in the paint. I think that they couldn't match that kind of athleticism and strength. So I think that athleticism, improving that profile, is going to be important. The Blazers have, they've had difficulty defensively for a while now. The team just isn't built to be a defensive stalwart, but I think they definitely took a step backwards last year. They were 28th in defensive rating, so that's not going to get it done. And I put depth on the wing particularly. We think about athleticism. I think they could improve the athleticism on the front, at the center position too. But I think, particularly on the wing, Melo came in, and we didn't even talk about him. He's a free agent. We'll get to that in a second. But Melo came in and really stabilized, the combo forward position. But besides that, because of the injury to Rodney Hood, and, they really didn't have a lot of other players who came in and played and made an impact. I think that their wings are kind of, bare. You have really good guard play with McCollum and obviously Lillard, and we like what we saw from Gary Trent, who I think showed himself to be a really, really high ceiling 3-and-D guy potentially.
You talked about him on our YouTube channel a couple of years ago.
I did. I did, and he's played exceptionally well, and I think he's a keeper for sure.
Simons in that same draft.
Yeah, no, exactly. So backcourt looks like they have it solved, but the wing is still a problem. So they got to figure out what they're gonna do there, and that's something they got to figure out in terms of free agents. As I mentioned, Hassan Whiteside was brought in as a stopgap to replace Nurkic. By the time Nurkic was back, Whiteside kind of lost favor. I don't think he'll be back next year. Carmelo Anthony, again, free agent, played well, hit some clutch shots in the bubble. I have no idea what his future holds, whether he wants to stay in Portland, whether there'll be more teams who are more in a position to win a championship that may find his services useful. We'll see. Kayla Swann again, guy who I actually did like in the draft process years ago. Looks kind of like a bust. I hate to say that, but that draft pick has not worked out. He's going to be a free agent coming off his rookie deal. He's not going to be re-signed. You got Wenyen Gabriel, Jalen Adams, Moses Brown, and Jay Horde are two-way deals. So this is, of course, Neil Shea's situation in his team. He's the president of basketball operations. I'll go first on this one, Kendall. This was a tricky team to figure who they should go with, because I think they're in a weird draft position. But I think for me, I felt like this team is a great offensive team. They don't necessarily move the ball that great. Like I think they're 30th in assists. Like they're all about one-on-one scorer, but they're a really good offensive team. And to me, I felt like if I could find a way to improve the offense, prove our strength, while also giving me a help on a weakness, that obviously is the benefit. That's the thing you want the most. That's like hitting the home run. So I don't know if this guy's gonna be there at 16, but if he was there, I would snatch him up immediately. My first choice would be Saddiq Bey for the Portland Trailblazers at 16. Talking about the strength is the offense. They're an excellent three-point shooting team. They're an excellent offensive team just overall, again, outside of ball movement. But look, they like one-on-one play. They like guys who, they're not kind of like these new age NBA teams. Like, if you got a mid-range game, they'll find a use for you. We've seen it with McCollum. We've seen it with Carmelo Anthony. They're not going to just completely say we're going to just do full-on layups and threes only. Saddiq Bey can score on all three levels. He has an excellent mid-range game. He has an excellent three-point shot. Release is a little funky. Some people may have questions whether or not that's a sustainable shot. I don't have much concerns because his range is unlimited. So I think he'll be fine, even though the free throw percentage is a little shaky. And we know he's a strong, not an athletic player, but a strong finisher at the rim. So he improves you offensively, and he improves you in a position you need, the wing. And he's young. Defense. I've raised questions about whether or not I think he's a NBA caliber stopper. I know in college he was an excellent defensive player. I think that I've been candid. I think that maybe he can get in a little better shape. He's not out of shape or anything crazy, but I think that the NBA player, the athleticism, the quickness he's going to face is going to be a little different than the guys he was guarding at Villanova. He played a lot of small ball 4, some even small ball 5.
So you're telling me that guarding wings in the Big East is not as easier than guarding Durant and LeBron?
Right. And I think that with his athletic profile where it stands, I think that it's not something that drastic needs to happen. But I think if he gets in a little bit better shape, I'll be more convinced that the defense will carry over. And I think that ends up being a win-win. So Saddiq Bey, really effective, efficient scorer, and potential for a really solid defensive player. So he would be my first choice with that 16th pick. But a big caveat whether or not he's there. I think that is around his floor. So if he falls, they'd be very lucky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is going to be a weird pick because, like you said, the depending on who is there is a big question because it seems like there are some guys. The range of this draft is really going up and down. Some guys seem like they're starting to fall. I mean, if we would have done this video 2 months ago, I would have said, "Oh, Patrick Williams might have been a nice guy to look at for the Portland Trailblazers," but seems now he may not get out of the top 10. So, I mean, who knows? I can't really even peg him without talking about trading up, and he's not a guy I would trade up for. So, to me, if I'm going to take another swing, because I think that this team, I agree that the wing position is a position of need. I like Saddiq Bey. I think he's a guy that Portland fans have definitely probably had their eye on. He's an obvious fit. You don't know what's happening with Melo. Even if Melo is back, you can play them both. He can kind of give you what Melo gives you.
And I think that Melo, absolutely, in terms of if I wanted a veteran to kind of teach him the ropes, and I think Saddiq Bey could learn a lot from Carmelo Anthony in terms of how do you fit in this today's NBA.
Yeah, and I like Bey because he comes from a winning program and a winning culture, and he's going to a team that kind of has that same DNA. They're not a championship team, but they're a team that is professional, is a team of professionals. And you got to carry yourself a certain way, and I think that he would relish in that environment. The guy I looked at is a little bit more of a swing, and I think NBA teams, you really don't know what you're gonna get from this guy because he was pretty bad in his 1 year of college. But I'm going Jaden McDaniels. Seattle kid, went to UW at Washington. He's an enigma, absolutely. But look, this is one of those deals where it's similar to Romeo Langford last year with the Celtics, where if you told the Blazers in November of last year that they would end up with Jaden McDaniels, they'd be like, wow, so is Lillard and McCollum, are they all right? Were they hurt? Because how do we get in the top 5? How do we get in the lottery? How do we get in the top 10? So the fact that they're at 16, and Jaden McDaniels is going to be on the board, again, I understand he had a bad freshman season. The tape is not good. There was some stuff, you could kind of tell his body language wasn't great, attitude questions, things of that nature, but he wasn't a complete train wreck. It was bad, I'm not gonna lie, but he still showed some framework of the guy that we thought he was coming out. He still showed some of those flashes, some of those skills. And you talk about improving the athletic profile. I don't think he's an elite NBA athlete, but I think he is a plus NBA athlete. A 6'10" frame gives them length and athleticism that they don't really have right now. The shooting that's something you're gonna have to project. And he came in to Washington with a reputation as maybe not a knockdown shooter, but a very capable shooter. Didn't shoot the ball as well as he would have liked at UW, but we know he has a shooting touch. So if he continues to work on it, and again, I like the environment for him to grow. It is a long-term swing. It's not somebody that I expect to help them from day one. I think he can, because he's a talented player, not somebody I would bank on. But to me, look, this is like a Jaylen Brown coming out of Cal, where you kind of have to just chalk up bad freshman season to a bad situation. Maybe didn't go to the right fit for him. But I think McDaniels, again, Pacific Northwest guy. I think the fan base would rally around him, and I think, or maybe the fan base knows as much as anybody than I could. I don't know. But sometimes you have that as well. Sometimes these teams in their market, like, no, I do not want the guy from the hometown team. Like a lot of Suns fans wanted nothing to do with Nico Mannion. So I mean, it's very interesting how sometimes that works out. But no, I think McDaniels, it's a reach, and you can maybe sell me on trading down, but that's the swing I'm taking because I think he's a guy that could help you right away, but also is a long-term play.
Yeah, I mean, 16 feels high for me for McDaniels. I do understand your point about, this is a player that going into the season you would have thought was not going to get out of the top 5. So, okay, he did have a bad season. Things did not work out well. We did see flashes of the talent we saw in high school that made people excited, but we didn't see it on getting close to a consistent level. If you could put him in a good program, and I agree, I think that Portland has shown to be a really strong program for young players. I think what we've seen some of these young players, we finally got to see Trent get real time, and then we saw how well he played. Some of these young guys, I don't think we
showed a lot of flashes.
Yeah, and some of these young guys, I don't think we've really seen all they can do. I think it's Zach Collins because of injuries and some of the guys in front of him. I think Simons because of some of the guys in front of him. We actually haven't seen maybe all they can do, but everything with how that team feels about those young guys shows you that they're very excited. And I think that when the few times we do get to see them play, you see, well, these guys are coming along really well. So the idea of McDaniels being in that program, I think I do like that idea. It's still a risk and a reach because of just the production not being there at Washington, but we know he has the ball skills and the size that are very enticing. Those 6'10", 6'11" guys that can do the things he can do, those are the Kevin Durant kind of unicorn people are looking for. And, there's reason to think that maybe if he could put it together, he could end up being a dynamite kind of player. So I get it. The 16 just feels like for a team that I think is trying to figure out what the next step is, I just wonder if that's too much of a I'm lighting a pick on fire for a team like Lillard with Lillard McCollum. They need help. Like, they need help now.
Yeah, it's not a move that Terry Stotts would like as a coach on a hot seat. I don't think he would like bringing Jaden McDaniels. It's not a job. It's not a pick that I don't think Neil O'Shea would really like as a probably GM that's probably on a hotter seat than normal. So I think that's maybe not a risk that they're willing to take, but he's the kind of player, if he works out, he's the kind of player that I think they need because, as much as I like Saddiq Bey's fit in Portland, I think that one thing that they do lack is like a third playmaker. Everything that they do revolves around the guards, which is fine, but their bigs, Nurkic has shown his ability in the pick and roll is impressive. To make plays out of as a roller, as a pick and roller. But they rely so much on Lillard and McCollum pick and rolls basically to get their offense. And so to have a wing that can play on the perimeter and make plays as well, have a 3 or a 4 that can make plays like that, like Jaden McDaniels could be something that could really help them.
But I'll be honest, I'd argue that
gave them none of that.
Yeah, but I'd argue
Trent gave them none of that.
But I'd argue that Saddiq Bey could absolutely be that guy. I mean, he has that one-on-one kind of game. I think it needs to be refined a little bit. But I think that
one-on-one. But is he ever going to make plays for other guys? And maybe McDaniels isn't either. But
I don't think McDaniels is to me. Like I don't.
Yeah,
think
McDaniels is raw.
Right.
But Saddiq Bey does feel like more in that mellow mold of like just an ISO spot kind of scorer.
So here's a middle. What if I gave you a middle ground player between Bey and McDaniels? What if I gave you a guy who has some of the traits that Bey has that makes you excited about how he can improve your strengths, but then also has some of the youth and upside that McDaniels has and maybe the higher ceiling that makes you feel like, maybe this guy ends up being better than what people think. The other guy I had was...
told you. Coming Tuesday, 9 p.m. on ESPN.
Yeah, thanks 30 for 30. The second guy I thought about was Josh Green. I think that he's maybe a middle in between that. Is he the polished product that Saddiq Bey is? No. But he's way more polished than Jaden McDaniels is right now. But while the ceiling might not be as high as McDaniels, I think that the fact that he's young, the fact that he's athletic, the fact that he seems to be the kind of guy that could be a very versatile, multifaceted forward. I think that you get some of that from obviously a much shorter player in Green. But yeah. I think he can end up being kind of the middle ground of what we're talking about.
The concern with Josh Green, I like Josh Green. It's a little bit of an overlap with Nasir Little, who they just got. And then you wonder, all right, do you like Little? I don't know. Do they like Little? That's the question.
I think to me, Nasir Little is a power forward. I don't even think he's a 3. I don't think he gives you minutes at the 3 in this NBA. So I would say no, because I think that Josh Green can actually give you minutes at the 2 and 3. I don't think that I don't think Nasir Little doesn't shoot the ball well enough or handle the ball well enough to me to where he's getting legitimate. I gotta know who the 4-man is if he's your 3, because where am I getting my shooting? Who's my my third ball handler in positions? I need to know that if he's gonna play the 3.
Look, he's not a playmaker at all. Shooting, honestly, you need to be able to shoot at all 5 positions. Certainly
Yeah,
1
yeah,
through 4 in
yeah.
today's NBA. But I don't know. I mean, to me, like, you get, like, that's why I think McDaniels would be interesting. The other guy I would look at, you mentioned shooting, is Aaron Nesmith. If he falls, which is possible, again, because this draft is volatile, that's a little bit, it's similar to this debate thing where you gotta hope the guy falls. If Aaron Nesmith falls, I think shooting is important for this team because, like you said, they are high powered, but I felt like there were still times where they had to have Trent, Lillard, McCollum, like one of those guys out there because Nurkic would be in those pick and roll situations, and you have to always have somebody on that wing that can make shots. And you bring in McDaniels, you bring in a guy that Josh Green, where it's like even Nasir Little couldn't get on the court, like because you have questions, can he make that shot? Aaron Nesmith, you're not gonna have those questions. So
And
he's a
one
guy
last
I would
thing,
look at.
so real quickly, one last thing you got to think about too when we talk about all these wings is, one, Melo could be back, and two, we can't forget about Rodney Hood. Um, you
Yeah, I don't
know,
know what Rodney Hood is.
I don't know what he is. He had a
I
very
don't know,
serious
Achilles.
injury, and
Yeah.
we all wish him well. But if Rodney Hood comes back and is able to play like Rodney Hood's capable of playing, he was playing really well before the injury. Maybe you're more willing to take a chance on a player like uh, um, Jaden McDaniels, or I heard Poku even talked about with this team. You maybe want to take more of that risk because you may feel like we have guys in our rotation already who are going to eat up these minutes anyway. So if Jaden McDaniels needs a year or two to figure it out, we'll be okay. I don't know if Melo's gonna be back, and I don't know what's gonna happen with Hood. So I think that there's way more uncertainty on the wing than maybe they would think so.
They
And
have a
they
second
would give
round pick
credit.
as well, which should help them to address some of these needs.
And Trevor
And
Ariza didn't go to the bubble, so he's another guy.
Trevor Reeves is on that team.
He's on
Totally
the team.
forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What did teams think Jaden McDaniels was gonna be in his freshman season? That's my question. Because I don't know. Like, I think we knew he was a project coming into Washington, and again, it wasn't great, but I mean, did you expect him to be Kevin Durant? That's my question.
I mean, I don't know, but I honestly, I just feel like I feel like a lot of these teams, there's a lot of reliance on just what the recruiting people tell you. So when we start handicapping the draft that early, I think that they don't really know a lot until we actually see what they see. And then once they saw what we got from McDaniels, I think that they were turned off, which is why right now his stock is fairly low. So we'll end up seeing what's happening. What do you guys think about what the Blazers should do? What do you think about taking a swing on someone like McDaniels? Do you think that's too high? Do you think that that's a calculated risk that makes sense? Or would you prefer a more solid case with someone like Sadiq Bey or Josh Green? Or is there another player you think they should go after? Make sure you leave a comment below letting us know what you think. And make sure you, if you enjoyed this video, to give us a like. And, of course, subscribe to our videos for more on our draft content, our virtual NBA draft war rooms. That'll do it for this one. I'm Kendall. Obviously, I'm EJ. Jesus Christ. I'm EJ for Kendall. Take it easy, guys. Peace.